All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to make sure you guys can see my screen and hear me. So if you could in the question box, could you just type yes so that I know you guys are hearing me and seeing my screen? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so while we're waiting for more people to get on, I'd like to find out where you guys are located. So if you could in the question box, go ahead and type what REIA or what city or what area you guys are coming from so we get an idea of where everyone's at. So we got New Orleans, we got Oklahoma, we got Jacksonville, Florida, Baltimore, Maryland, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Dallas, Texas, um, Milwaukee, REIA, Springfield, Ohio, Mount Laurel, New Jersey, Detroit, Michigan, um, Minnesota, a couple more from Wisconsin. Okay, so that's awesome. You can see we got people coming from all over the country. And that's because we provide the websites for different RIAs around the country. And today, what I want to do is give you guys a demonstration of the property analyzer tools that are available through your RIA. But as we're waiting for a couple more people to get on here, we've got about 50 or so on here right now. We'll probably get another 50 to 75 that'll be signed on here in the next couple minutes. Because we've got over 100 people pre-registered for today's webinar. So while we're waiting for those, I will cover the fact that you guys do get a free basic website with your membership through your RIA. So as a member of your RIA, you do get that free website. And to activate that, all you have to do is log into your RIA. And so if you go to your RIA, get logged in, and then go to my account, and then scroll down to go down to my dashboard, and then scroll down to the section that says manage my website. And then from there, you'll be able to just click on the activate the free website. Now, the first step is you do have to get logged in. And so if you are new to your RIA and you've never logged in before, you will have to, if you don't know your password, there will be a link in the login page that says forgot password, and that'll send you a temporary password to reset it so that you can get access. Because everyone has an account. If you need to get reset your password, that's all you're gonna have to do. And if you do get logged in and you get to this page and it says edit, that means you've already activated your free website before. You don't have to worry about it. However, if you do get here and the button is not clickable, it says activate, but it's like grayed out and you can't click on it. That means you're logged in with an inactive membership status. So that one of the most common reasons for that, if you are an active member, is you maybe have two different user accounts and your membership was assigned to one account, but you're logging in with a different one. So there's a couple different ways to handle that. One is you can get a hold of somebody from your RIA, an administrator or whatever from your RIA, and they can help straighten that out. But I do have two people on staff right now that can also help out. And our office number is there on the bottom of the screen. It's at 763-432-2809. And so if you give my office a call, either Jennifer or L'Oreal will be able to help you with that. And if you do call and you just get voicemail, that means that they're already helping other people. So just go ahead and leave your name and a phone number and that you were calling for help getting logged into your RIA because you're on the webinar, and they'll call you back just as quickly as they possibly can. Like you'd be the next one in queue, and then they'll be able to help you out, find your memberships, get them, tied together, and get it reset, activate the membership on the account that you want to log in with. So you'll be able to do that. So those are the main things. And then, as well as you can also do this from your phone. The navigation will look a little bit different. It's still your account and then dashboard, but then the tabs will be in a different order. And just click on that again. Click on activate that free website. And let me pull up a sample of the website. So I'm going to pull up. I'm going to show you guys like through MinRIA here. So this is our site through MinRIA. And I'm just going to go to a random. I'll just pick the newest property we have and then go to that individual's website. All right, so this is the the website that you guys get. It's a fully functional, pre-built, and there's different themes. So there's a couple different themes and a bunch of different colors. So you can pick and choose the design and the style that you like, and that fits what you're looking for. But the content is all created for you, so you don't have to create the content. So it's got a landing page, it's got a seller's form, a buyer's form, a generic contact us form on your website, as well as the ability to list properties. So when you have properties for sale, the property is going to show up on your personal site. It'll also show up on your REIA's website. And lastly, it'll show up on Real Estate Promo. And on Real Estate Promo, this is like the national database for all the properties, for all the members throughout the entire system throughout the country. And you can see here we got properties from all over. Like we got Michigan, so there's like two of them from Michigan there. Maryland, Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio, a couple more from Maryland and North Carolina again. And so all the members all flow through to this. Now, the beauty of that is like you just started out, you activated your free website, and you do not have any SEO. So the search engines, nobody even knows you exist out there. Well, one, the sites are already built with a good SEO, but because of the REIA as well as Real Estate Promo, both of them have a pretty high ranking in the search engines. So because of that, your property listings will probably show up quicker or higher in the listings, if you know, just like in an organic generic search. And then as people click on that and work their way through, then that's when Google and Bing and Yahoo and all those will start picking up on the fact that you got your website out there, and that all builds on the SEO. So it's like a self-perpetuating SEO program by everyone's working together and helping each other build up the SEO for their. And SEO stands for search engine optimization. So that's just, you know, when somebody does a Google search, how high are you going to rank? And so when your brand's making new search engines and don't even know you exist, so you won't even show up in the engines, in the search engines. But over time, your website will start showing up. And there's on the REIA, there's some how-to videos. So if you go to my account and then go down to how-to videos, there's videos that'll walk you through in more detail about the free websites, about the adding properties, how to go ahead and add your properties and get that all set up. But the sites are all pre-built. There's nothing you need to do. And you can't actually even add content other than the property listings themselves. So go through these how-to videos. And an important one to watch is like video number 2, because that's going to talk about how to get your own domain name and then set up the forwarding of that domain name so that you can put on your own domain name on your business cards and all that stuff, and it'll still link to your free website you got through your REIA. So make sure you go and watch those videos, and that'll walk you through the whole entire system. And there's a bunch of different how-to videos when it comes to all the websites, both the free and the upgraded property analyzer tools and the premium websites that come with the property analyzer tools. All right. And then when you have your properties listed, like I said, it's going to show up on all the different sites. But the other thing our system does is it also checks to see if there's any new property leads from our members. And it sends out an email to everybody in the database for your REIA. And so you get a tremendous amount of advertising and marketing for your properties. And that's for whether you're wholesaling properties, if you just flip the property, you know, you're putting up for retail, or if you're a landlord and you're renting out your properties, or maybe doing a lease option or whatever. That's going to automatically get emailed out to everybody in the database for your REIA. Plus, it'll get pushed out through Real Estate Promo. We actually get syndicated on a few other national websites as well, so you are getting additional advertising and marketing out there on these properties. Okay. Now, let's talk about the Property Analyzer tools. Now, this is not free. The Property Analyzer tools is an upgrade. It's not free. There is a cost. So I do want to get that out of the way right away. There's a monthly fee of $34.95, and there is a one-time setup fee of $79. Now, it's normally $179, but as a member of your REIA, you're going to get $100 off using that promo code REIA members. All right, so you're just paying a one-time setup fee of $79 and $34.95 per month. And there's no long-term contract. You can take it for a test run. In fact, take it for a test run for 30 days. And if you cancel within the first 30 days, you get a full refund, including that setup fee. But once you get past the first 30 days, then you can cancel at any time. There's no long-term contract. You're not stuck in it for 2 years or anything like that. You can take it month by month after that first 30-day trial run. Right, so I recommend everyone get out for a test and then go from there and give it a try for the first 30 days. Set up the websites because when you also activate the property analyzer tools, you get an upgraded premium website, which is also a fully functional site. You can add your own content, upload images and videos, create reports, create as much content as you want, manage the linking. It's fully functional, fully customizable website with a ton of pre-built themes and different colors and design themes for you as well. And if you had a custom design that you needed set up for your system, we have that ability. There would be a cost for that, but it's a pretty nominal fee. Usually, you can get it done for pretty quick, pretty cheap to just create something custom, especially if you've already got a template and we can just modify it. I do have somebody on staff that will be able to help you guys with that. So just reach out to us if you do want to get to that level of customizing the theme. But for most people, you're going to be able to, between tweaking the different themes and all the different color options, that's more than enough for like 99% of everyone out there. Right? And that's all part of the whole system, and that comes with the property analyzer tools. You'll also get access to all those training videos, and I have a ton of different mastermind training that's available. Plus, I do live mastermind coaching calls. I do that a couple times a month. In fact, we got one tonight, and we also have another one tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we have a live property tour. For you guys, if you're local here in Minnesota, you'll be able to come to live. But if you're anywhere else, you can just watch the Zoom because I'll have the video guy there walking through the property with us, and he'll have it on Zoom, and you'll be able to go through that with us and even interact with us on that. You can ask questions and stuff like that, and we'll respond to that. So we do that generally twice a month for the premium Property Analyzer Tools members. So let me dive right into the Property Analyzer Tools. I'm going to pull my site. Now, everything I'm going to demo, I'm demoing it through my personal site here on MinREIA, but you're going to do the exact same thing through your REIA. So whichever REIA you're a member of, just go to that REIA to do everything you see me doing here through MinREIA. Right? And obviously, if you're a member of MinREIA, just do it at MinREIA, but everyone else, pick your REIA, go there. So first of all, I want to get to my dashboard, which is under my account and my dashboard. And then from my dashboard, scroll down to where it says Property Analyzer Tools. That's the button right, or the tab right below Manage Your Website. We want to go down to the Property Analyzer Tools. And then from here, we want to start at step 1. And that's going to be our repair estimate worksheet. And so from here, we just select the repair estimator. And we can either select a property that's already in our dropdown. And these would be properties that maybe we got a lead from a seller, or that we put in here manually because we were maybe out looking at properties on our own. Right? And so I'll just put one in here because I don't think I have it in there. 50. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. What is my property address? "42nd Avenue, Robbinsdale." All right. So I went out, found the property. I don't know, I can't Colorado. Oh, I know why. Because it pulled up property that I've been working on before, and I was playing around with that. So it found the property. Yep, that's the right location. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's actually a 2-car garage. I don't know why it's always comes up as a 3-car, and it's a 1.5 story, not a 1 story. And that square footage is about right. So it did find that info, and it found it on Zillow. So Zillow is just sharing with us what this estimate is on the property. We're not going to rely on that for our value, but it did find it on Zillow, so it is sharing with us what Zillow's estimate is. So I'll go ahead and save that. And then it brings us right down to the estimator. And here it's pretty simple. All you have to do is hit some check boxes and enter some quantities, and it'll calculate what the repair budget for that property should be. So for example, if I'm looking at it and I want to replace the roof, I would just hit the checkbox for roof. Windows, I would count how many windows in the property that need to be replaced. And let's say I want to replace all the windows. Maybe I walked around and counted, I don't know, 14, 15 windows. And then doors in these are the exterior because the section that we're going through right now is all exterior stuff. And so let's say there's two doors, a front door and a back door. If we had a patio door and we wanted to replace that, we could just select a patio door. And then exterior, do we want to paint or do we want to tear off the old siding and replace it with new siding? And then driveway, do we have to replace the driveway? Do we have a small, medium, or large driveway? I know in my area, we replace a lot of driveways. We use mostly asphalt out here. So it's expensive, but it's not nearly as expensive as concrete. I know some parts of the country you guys primarily use concrete. Here we primarily use asphalt, and our winters are terrible on our driveways because we put a lot of salt and chemicals on the road. And as we're driving, that gets on our vehicles, and everything freezes, and we park in our driveway, and the sun beats on them during the day, and that all starts to melt, and it just destroys our driveway. So we go through a lot of driveways in our area. And all you have to do is say, is it a small, medium, or large driveway? And it'll do the calculation for us based on that. And then I'll just hit update. And it just went through and calculated what the cost of like the roof on that property, replacing the windows, replacing two doors, replacing that patio door, new siding on the property, replacing the driveway. So we got a budget of $23,386 for the exterior. Okay. And then we'll go to the garage. Well, generally, what I need to do on the house, I'm pretty much going to do on the garage, especially if it's an attached garage. Right? And don't worry about whether it's attached or detached. That's not going to make enough of a difference in the cost for us to try to make that determination. But if it is attached, obviously we're going to have to do exactly the same thing. If it's detached, then you can look at it individually and decide whether it needs it or not. But in this case, I'll just say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and replace all that stuff. I'll hit update. And now we're coming up with $9,900 for the garage. And then we go to the interior. So paint, maybe if I had to replace all the interior doors, flooring, I want to gut and replace the kitchen. So the kitchen, I just hit a checkbox and it'll do our calculation for us. Right? The bath, do I want to gut and replace the bathroom? So maybe I gut one of those. Electrical, maybe I got to replace the panel, rewire the house, or panel and rewire. Right now, when I bought this property, we did have to do a panel and a rewire. Now, when I say rewire, we're not talking about running all new wires in a house. What we're talking about there is just rewiring the basics just to bring it up to code. Like if we need to add additional outlets because maybe there's not enough outlets in a bedroom or whatever, or the outlets are not all grounded. That's very common where you'll have half the outlets are grounded, and then maybe another section of the property are not grounded because they got updated and they didn't get grounded properly at some point, right? So we're talking about doing just the bare minimum to bring everything up to code. If the property is gutted and like one of the properties we're working on right now, it's got knob and tube, so we are rewiring the whole entire house. That's more than what this system is thinking about as a rewire. So if we're gonna just do a quick rewire, we're talking $2,500, $3,000 in miscellaneous stuff. But to rewire, like completely rewire the whole entire house, you're talking closer to $8,000 to $10,000 because the cost of all brand new Romex is really expensive for properties these days. Plus all new circuit breakers and everything else to bring everything up to code. Plumbing, does it need plumbing and how much? Well, there isn't a way to say it needs it, so here's how much it's going to cost. Plumbing is a little bit more subjective and you do need a little bit more experience. My rule of thumb is if it looks like it's going to need some work, I generally just throw a budget of about $2,500 in there just because if I know I got to do something, I'm going to find other things that are going to need to be done, especially once we start opening up the walls. That's generally going to be the case. Uh, and now if it's got old cast iron pipe and I know and maybe galvanized water supply lines, well then I know I'm going to spend probably more than $2,000 $3,000. So then I'll just say $5,000. Right? But we'll just pick a number. And if you're not sure, I would rather have you guys overestimate so that you have a higher budget than what you really need, or wait on making an offer on the property and then get a bid from a contractor, from a plumbing contractor to give you an actual bid. If you're nervous about when it comes to plumbing, either bid a little bit on the higher side or just get a bid from a contractor until you're a little bit more comfortable with coming up with your own prices on that. The HVAC, air conditioning, water heater system, and then basement remodels. So some people out here don't even have basements in your properties, but for most of the country, we do have basements. And then when I'm talking about basements, we're talking about unfinished. So this would be a value would place on an unfinished, because if it was a finished basement, everything, all those things in the basement are already being calculated in all the rest of this finished stuff. Like flooring, that would be included in our total finished square footage. Because most of the stuff is taking the values from what we put for our total square footage of the property. And then as well as we do break it up above ground and below ground grade. And that is going to come to like when we have our 1.5, 2 stories, split entries, multi-level, because that's going to change our formulas when it comes to things like siding and roofs. And there's an algorithm in the back of the back end of the system based on the style of the property and the total square footage above grade that it will determine how many square might be on a roof, or how much square of siding we would need for the property, or how many gallons of paint is going to generally be needed for painting the exterior of a property based on that style. All right, so we go through all that, we hit update, and then down below it pulls our values. So we got our exterior, and then we got the garage, and then we got the interior, and then the system also takes 25%, 20 to 25%, whatever you put in for your values, for a miscellaneous calculation. Because if you'll notice, here we just looked at all the major components of a property. Well, there's also a ton of different miscellaneous things that have to be done in a rehab, but we don't need to go through and try to calculate all that. So we just use a miscellaneous factor for all the rest of that stuff, which is a pretty good number. And that also helps you avoid missing things. Because a lot of beginners go through and they start trying to, pick all these little detail things, and then you miss a lot of things that need to get done. So you come up with a budget of like $70,000, and then you got all these miscellaneous items that you didn't even think about that can add up to another $10, $15, $20,000. And so that's why with the system just says, hey, you know what, based on all this major stuff, we're going to have about X amount of dollars for miscellaneous things to go along with it. All right, so the system has calculated out our numbers, and this allows us to go through the property, especially just taking our phone, go through the property on our phone, hit some check boxes, enter some quantities, and it'll give us what the repair budget on that property should be. And then you'll see there's a link here that says print scope of work. And the scope of work was just generated for us by the system. We didn't have to do anything. We hit the checkbox for the roof. And so it just added a category into the scope of work here. And it calculated out and said, hey, there's on this little property, there's about 9 square. And I'm using it $450 per square. So it's coming up with a value of a little over $4,000 to do that roof, as well as the windows, the doors. So it's breaking it all down and creating a scope of work. Now, this scope of work is probably one of the most valuable tools you're going to use when it comes to negotiating with the sellers. One of the things that I found over the years is if you share the scope of work, not just throw out a number, but like a breakdown. It doesn't have to be in exact detail. This is not the scope of work that a contractor is going to use for the project. It's not what they're going to use for bidding it out. It's not what they're going to use for ordering materials or anything like that. They're going to create a totally different scope of work, which is going to be way, way, way more detailed. This is just a very generic one that we can submit to the sellers along with our offers, because this goes a long way for the sellers to understand why our offer is coming where it's at. And this scope of work has actually pushed me over the edge in competition with other investors, because the seller's looking at that going, oh, well, I see why Mike's offer is coming at blah, 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 because he plans on doing all this stuff. And these are all the things that we would love to do, but we just couldn't afford to do it. And I'd love to see that done. I literally had people sell me their property because they said that they loved the idea of what we were going to do to the property. Right? Whereas even the other investors, they might have come up with the same number, but they didn't share it in a way that made the sellers feel good about the number. In fact, most people, they run these numbers and say, okay, because we all know how to make our offers, right? It's ARV times 75% minus repairs, comes up with our Mayo formula, blah, blah, blah. And then we just give the seller an offer. Well, I found that if you add these different supporting documents with your offers, it pushes you over the edge. In fact, I bought a property last summer from a guy. I was the lowest of four offers. Now I was the lowest by about $10,000. I came in about $10,000 lower than ever. Well, I was like $8,000 lower than one and $10,000 lower than two other offers that I knew about. And I got the property because the seller looked at this, went through these numbers, spent time, literally started calling me and asking me questions, not so much about the details of the scope of work, but like the overall view of the scope of work. We talked about a few things, and he's like, "Hey, that kind of what I was thinking it was going to be in that neighborhood for price wise, anyways." Right? And because I did that, I'm the one that he was talking to, and it took him a couple more days to make a decision on who he's going to sell to. But this right here was one of the things that the catalyst that pushed him over the edge to give him more confidence that I knew what I was talking about and that I would be able to buy the property and close on it. And in fact, that property, it did have a high number like this because the property was basically gutted. It needed actually, I think if I remember right, $95 or $98,000 was where the number came in on that property because it was pretty much gutted and we had to do a ton of work. And he knew it was going to be a lot of money. He just didn't know exactly how much. But by seeing that scope of work, he felt so much better with it. So by the time he was ready to negotiate, now he countered me back at my initial offer, so I did come up, but I still bought the property for $10,000 less than the other offers that were out there. Right. And the scope of work was one of the big factors of that. Now, there's more to it, and I'll share that with you guys in just a minute, the different tools that go along with that and help with the sellers. But this is so valuable when it comes to presenting our offers with the seller that this definitely does it. In fact, I mean, I could tell you story after story after story where this has been the negotiating tipping point that tipped the seller in our favor because of this scope of work. Now, the other thing you'll notice, there's a button up here that says blank for contractor bids. Because the other thing we're going to do is this process that we're using is just so that we can get a value of the repair budget, not a detailed breakdown list of what like the contractor is going to use for bidding the property, doing their order supplies and all that stuff. This is just so that we can quickly figure out what the value of the repair is going to be so we can calculate our offers. But once I get my offer accepted, one of the calls I make is to the contractor, and I'll ask the contractor to meet me at the property. And I'll tell them, look, I just got an offer accepted on the property. Can you meet me over there this afternoon or tomorrow? And if you can come in within my budget, I'm going to go ahead and close on that property. Right? Well, what I'm telling them is like, if he can come in on my budget, he's got the job. Right? So the contractor is going to come over and look at the property with me. And I found the best way to share or explain to the contractor what we want to do is show them this scope of work, but I don't want to show the contractor what my numbers are for a couple different reasons. One, the way we get to our numbers and the way the contractors get to the numbers are two totally different things. The only thing I'm concerned about is that the contractor's total price comes in with, about 10% or so of what our numbers at. Right? So if I'm at 89 and the contractor came in at 97, I'm probably going to go ahead and use that contractor. But I don't want to show these numbers of the contractor. So I can click on blank. Right? So now it's given a breakdown of what we want to do without sharing any of the values. And then I can print this out and bring it with me to meet the contractor. And that'll make it crystal clear to the contractor what we're looking to do. For example, install new kitchen, not refinish the cabinets, not try to doll it up and save the cabinets. No, we want to install a new kitchen. We want to do all new hardwood floor with LVP luxury vinyl planking. Right? We're going to paint the interior. We want to install new siding on the property. Right? Rather than us going through and say, hey, give me a bid to do a full-blown rehab without explaining what it is, this explains it. So now the contractor knows exactly what to look at. So we can go back and forth with or without the values on here. Right? So that's a nice little feature for us. So then we come back, we're going to go to the property details, and the next step we have to do is figure out, well, what's the value of the property? Right? Because I put this one in here before, I already ran some comps on it. So I went and found, let's say, 3 different properties that have sold recently. I found one for $239,500, I found one for $260,000, and I found one for $249,900. So then when I put that in here, and I hit update, Mayo, update ARV/Mayo, it's going to determine what the ARV is on the property. So it's coming up based on my comps. It's coming up with an ARV of around 250. With our repair budget, that puts our Mayo for this particular property at $97,000. So we're at 97,879 for the Mayo on this property based on our repair budget. Okay, so that's showing us what our cash offer is. Now, next step we want to do is go into the seller net sheet. And the seller net sheet is a negotiating tool that we're going to work with the seller to go through and help the seller understand what their net would be on that property. So if they sold this themselves, if they went through, did the renovation on the property, put the property on the market at full retail value, accepted an offer, paid off their underlying mortgage, paid off their expenses, their holding costs, everything else, what would they net? In this case, if they did do $89,000 worth of work to the property to sell it for the $250, they could expect to net around $20,000, maybe $25,000 or so. All right, so that would be their net if they went that route. So what we do with this seller net sheet is I fill this out with the seller, or the other thing you can do is just send a link to this to the seller and let the seller fill it out themselves. So actually, most of the time, that's what I do is I just let the sellers fill it out because it's going to go through and ask them all those different questions. They're going to put in the information, and then they're going to see what their net would be if they did it themselves. So this is how we can work with it. Right now, there's a mortgage calculator in here, and there's a training video on how to use the calculator because this is not straightforward. But what this calculator is a way for you to identify the correct information because the sellers almost always give us the wrong information. And like I said, there's a video here that'll walk you through how to use this calculator. But bottom line, what it's doing is it's doing a double check on the numbers. So if they give us these numbers and it spits out down below what the results would be based on the information that we have provided. And as long as that information matches, then we know we got the right numbers. But you'd be surprised, most of the time our numbers do not match. Like the sellers might say, well, yeah, my monthly payment is $1,200. So if I hit calculate, down below, we got a whole different set of numbers down below. Now, every one of these numbers down below is correct based on the other three items from above. It's like the remaining payments, there's actually 103 payments left if we have a $100,000 loan at 5% with $1,200 a month payment. But usually what the case is, the seller is giving us what their PITI payment is, and we're not concerned about PITI. We want to know what the principal and interest is. Well, down below, it's breaking that out. So based on 194 payments at 5% interest with a $100,000 balance, our principal and interest portion of the payment is $752.58. So we can just go ahead and use that. It'll calculate all that for us. Now that we got good numbers, we can now also view our amortization schedule. So it's going to build out an amortization for this property. Saying, okay, if we start making the payments, if we bought the property now, closed on it in October, or by the end of this month, our first payment is going to start in November, right? And if we have a balance of $100,000, well, let's say we want to see what we owe after 3 years. Maybe we want to sell the property on a lease with the option to buy for a 3-year term, and then they're going to cash us out. Well, how much do we still owe so we know what we can profit? Well, if I come down here 36 months, we'd still owe $86,982. Right, so we've only paid down about $13,000 in 3 years on the principal. That means most of that money that we've been making the payment on goes to interest. Right, but it's nice to have this amortization schedule. And when you are selling properties, you also need to provide an amortization schedule to your end buyer. Right, so you can also use this calculator to help you create that. In fact, there's a calculator on the front end specifically for that purpose. It's the same type of a calculator. But it's not tied to the seller net sheet. This particular one is just tied to the seller net sheet. Then we figure out, okay, what's the annual taxes? What's the insurance on the property? What are their utilities? Right? And that adds it all up and says, okay, their total monthly holding cost on the property is $1,623 a month. Then we come down and say, okay, if you listed your property for the $249,800, you could expect to receive an accepted offer around 97% of what you're asking, which means you're agreeing to about a $242,306 offer. And usually when we go through this, and the seller's like, okay, that makes sense. Right now, what they've really agreed to is a 3% discount on their overall price. Okay. And then the realtor's commission, 6%. And then our closing costs and our holding costs. Right now, the holding cost is one where I do get a little bit of a question with the sellers like, what is a holding cost? And like, well, then I have to explain to them, like, well, once you put your property on the market, right, you have to look at this as a cost to you. And most people don't even understand what they're paying on a monthly basis for their property because all they're really thinking about is their monthly payment to the lender, and they might think about one or two of their major utility bills to the property. Right? But most people don't add that all up and think about it from the standpoint of it's costing me $1,623 a month just to own this property, nothing else. Just owning the property. That's about what it's going to cost you. Right. So I tell them, look, once you put the property on the market, this now is a factor you have to keep in mind because that's draining your bank account every single month while you're advertising and marketing the property. And usually they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Another way I've explained it to sellers too is like, look, this is what's going to cost you on a monthly basis to hold on to the property, and I need to know that as well. I mean, you should know this, but when I'm looking at the property, I need to know what this is going to cost just to hold on to the property as well, because if the expenses are too high, I might not even want to do this deal. And usually you say something like that, like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. Right? But that is adding to their cost to sell the property, right? And then we scroll down, we got their delinquent bills, like if they're behind on their mortgage payment, well, how much is it going to cost to reinstate their mortgage? Usually, if they're behind on their mortgage, they're generally also behind on their property taxes and utility bills. These are great negotiating tools for us as well. If they're behind on these utilities, usually what I end up doing is I tell the sellers, look, I'll I'll take over let me take over your loan, for example, like a pre-foreclosure or something like that, and they got an underlying loan. I'll say, let me take over your loan and I will pay these utilities, these back payments. Your property taxes, I'll get them all caught up because they have to be caught up in order for me to buy the property anyway. So rather than that coming out of your proceeds, I'll just go ahead and cover that as part of my closing costs. Your water bill, I'll go ahead and get that paid because obviously that has to be paid at closing as well. But your gas and electric bills, those follow you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We could get by without me having to pay them, but they follow you, and you're not going to be able to go to your next place and turn on utilities until you've paid off those utility bills. And I'll go ahead and just cover that and take care of that for you so you got a clean slate. In fact, I just did that twice now in this last week where we just paid, they were behind on their water bill as well as their gas and electric bill. That we negotiated that because we got the property basically for no money down on a subject to, and we covered the utility bills, and it was part of the HUD statement. So we found out what was owed on the gas and the electric, added it to the HUD statement. I had to bring that into closing to cover the closing costs, and then the title company made all those utility bills for the sellers. So now the sellers have a nice clean slate, and that allowed them to get moved out of the property and into their next rental property and reactivate their utility bills at their new places. Come all the way down here, it ties it all together, and it's showing that the seller has a net proceeds of 19,000. Okay, so then our next step is we go into the offer generator wizard, and the offer generator wizard will look at 8 different ways of buying the property and give you the top 2 or 3 suggestions. Right, so option number 1 is a cash offer. So we're saying we'll pay you we'll give you $97,879 cash, right? And we can close quickly. Then it's also going to look at, there's a subject to, but you can see subject to was not selected because it's not yellow. So the background of the cash offer is yellow, sub 2 is not. And then we have a short-term seller financing and a long-term seller financing. Those are not options because both of these have a mortgage. Right? Well, if the seller, in order for the seller to accept either a short-term or a long-term seller financing from us, they would not have a mortgage, right? Because if they had a mortgage and they accepted one of those offers from us, they would be upside down really quickly because the way we structure our offers is we get full principal pay down on our payment, whereas the seller's only getting a small portion of that from the bank. So they're not going to be able to accept that. However, we go down to the next category, and that's going to combine subject to with seller financing. Right? So we have a short-term and a long-term seller financing options. Right? So here it's saying, well, we'll do 100, we'll give you $108,000. Right? And what we'll do is we'll take over your $100,000 loan. That'll leave a balance of $8,700. I'll give you $5,000 down now. In this case, it's saying I'll pay you, like $20. I would probably go in there and tweak that. I have to run the numbers on that because $20 is a pretty low amount. So I'd probably get that up to like $50 or $75 a month. That's just going to come out of my cash flow. So I just got to make sure I got the cash flow. However, if we look at right here, it says view exit strategy. So the exit strategy is going to show us, well, how would the numbers work out? And here it's saying that for us, a cash flow calculation of around $145.44 a month, which means that I could increase that $20 to, I could probably bump that up to about 75, which would take about $50 out of that. So that'd keep my cash flow under $100, but I'm giving the seller a decent amount of money. But if I didn't do that, and let's say I did come up with a decent number, right? So it's saying 5-year with a balloon payment of $2,520 after 5 years. So we're going to offer the seller money down, a little bit of a monthly payment, and then a lump sum after 5 years. And then option number 3 would be we'll give you $119,532. We'll take over your loan of $100, and then we'll do a carryback for the $19,000. I'll pay you $82 a month for the next 119 months. That'd be 10 years. And then a balloon payment after that. Right, so this is what the system has come up with for these different options. Oh, there's also a lease option and a short sale. And the short sale usually comes up only when the seller is upside down dramatically. If they have very little equity, then it's usually going to be either a lease option or a subject to offer. Right, but here we got 3 different options, and each one of these have an exit strategy. So it's going to give you a breakdown saying, okay, if the seller accepted this offer, number 2, or I took over their loan of $100,000 subject to, and then did a carryback, paying them $82 a month. Right? Let's view our exit strategy. And here it's saying sell on a 3-year lease with the option to buy on what's called a sweat equity program. Now, sweat equity, if you've never heard of that, that is where we sell properties that need some work but are livable to an end buyer who wants to build up their own equity. And we don't fix up the property. We let them fix up the property, and we just give them a discount on the property and their acquisition. And then we carry the financing for them to allow them to fix the property up. Now, most of the time they don't fix up the property. They end up just moving into the properties because most of the time they are livable as is. And that is a key, that they do have to be livable as is in order to do this sweat equity type of a program. Unless you're selling to like a contractor who's got the skills and maybe the ability to pull permits and the resources to do a major renovation. But most of the properties don't need a major renovation. They're livable. They just need to be updated. Those are perfect candidates for a sweat equity program. And when you guys get signed up on the Property Analyzer tools, I got training in the back end through the mastermind training on what sweat equity is and how to do the numbers and how to sell a property on sweat equity. So we got complete training on the back end for that type of an offer strategy. But it's showing you how the numbers are going to work out, how we could sell the property, and then what our potential profit is and how we're going to earn that profit. And then down below, it's giving us some breakdown of some of the calculations from up above. So it's giving us more details on how it's all broken down. And each one of these has its own exit strategy. Like the cash offer, well, our exit strategy would be either flip the property or wholesale the property. And then what can we make on these properties as a wholesale fee or as a flip fee? Right. So we find the 3 options that we want, and then I'll come up here and hit save and generate letter of intent. Right. And then here's breaking out, and we can still modify this and edit this before we go ahead and generate the PDF. But let's say I went through, I did all that, I'm ready to go, and then I hit create letter of intent. And what it's doing is it's taking this, all this information that I created here, and it's generating a PDF document for us and it just opened my other window. All right, so here's the PDF that it downloaded. Let me open that in full screen. And so it's a PDF document. It says, "Dear homeowner." Now I would have edited all that and made it a little bit more made it a little bit more personable to the seller rather than "Dear homeowner." It would have their name in there and all that stuff in it. And then it would say, "Here's the 3 different options that we can do." Give them a breakdown. and then it's going to include a scope of work. So that's that scope of work that we generated from this property. Just by us hitting some check boxes and some quantity, it generated the scope of work, and it's including it with our offer. This is how I submit all my offers because I want the sellers to look at multiple different options. And you can see we got our cash offer, we've got our option number 2 and our option number 3. Now, if we went back, I mean, get that out of my way here. If we go back to the property details on here, let's go back to the seller net sheet. What was our seller net? It was 19,532. Well, if we go back to the offer generator, what was our to the letter of intent? What was this option here? It was a 19,532. So it's literally saying we'll take over your loan subject to, and we'll give you your full equity, but we're going to have to make payments on it. Now, what will generally happen when you do these types of offers? The sellers are going to be interested in option number 3 because of the price, but option number 3, I generally don't give them a down payment, or I don't initially offer a down payment. What I offer is a monthly payment. Option number 2, it's a little bit lower price, but it does usually entice them with a down payment, right? So what will usually end up happening when I make these types of offers is if the sellers are interested. Now, they're not always interested. Sometimes they'll just read these and say, no, I'm going to pass. I'm not interested right now. Sometimes they'll just pass on it and they'll call us back 6 months later and say, hey, are these offers still available? I'd like to discuss them with you. Right? Because you gave them a letter of intent. A lot of times they'll hold on to these. And I have actually bought properties from heirs where I've made an offer on a property and then shortly, within a year, the sellers passed away, whether it was from an accident, heart attack, or just old age. And the sellers had held on to that. And twice now over the last 20 years or so, I have bought properties from the heirs, like the estate, where they're going through the property, cleaning it out, and they found my letter of intent. And like, yeah, it looks like you were trying to sell or buy the property from my parents. Because I remember when they were talking about selling it, but they chose not to. And they just passed away. So if you're interested, why don't you come take a look at it and make us an offer again. Right? So I have done that a couple of times, and it was because of this letter of intent that they held on to it. Right? And so sometimes the seller will call you back on it later on. But what will usually happen for me is the sellers will call, they'll try to negotiate with me somewhere between these two. It's like, well, I want the 119, but I want I want down payment. Okay, well, maybe I can do like 117 and I'll give you $3,000 down payment or something like that. We'll negotiate back and forth. Right? So that'll happen frequently, not all the time, but frequently. But what'll inevitably happen most of the time, even if I am negotiating back and forth with the seller on these two options here, they almost always default back to the cash option. Right? I bought one last month. Exactly the same thing happened there. Right? I went back and forth for a couple of weeks with the seller between option number 2 and option number 3, and we came up with a good alternative that worked out. And then after all that, the seller finally came back and said, you know what? I'll just take the cash option. Like, okay, we will pay you cash. Right? But the beauty of that is most of the time they take the cash option, but they're not upset with me for the fact of making the cash option because they had these other options here. And here's the beauty of it. I make these 3 different options, and quite frequently, I'm the one buying the property at the cash option, even though there's higher cash offers than mine that were made, but they were made either verbally or via text message or something like that. And the sellers have completely forgotten about them, and I'm building rapport and building trust with the seller by providing all this information, and then they're going back and forth and talking to me about this stuff. This is how we make offers and how we get sellers to accept our offers without offending them by making what they might perceive to be a low ball offer. So we give them multiple options, let them sit on them, let them decide what they want to do. Most of the time they end up taking our, if we buy the property. When I say most of the time, I don't mean most of my offers. I mean, most of the time when they take an offer, it's the cash offer. Right? But occasionally they will take option number 2 or option number 3, depending on their situation. Now, in reality, which one do I want them to take? I don't care. I want them to take whichever one they want, whichever one they're most comfortable with. But my hopes is that they always take option number 3. Because option number three gets me in for the least amount of money down out of my pocket. Uh, it doesn't give me the most cash flow on the property, but over the long run, I'm getting tremendous principal pay down, and I'm getting into the properties for nothing down. And then that allows me to turn around and sell these properties on, close that out, on a sweat equity program. Where did that go? Go back into here. I'll go back in the offer generator and then look at our exit strategies. And it allows me to sell it on with seller financing on a sweat equity program and cash flow it and make a nice profit on these properties in the long run. And if once you understand the time value of money and building up this pipeline of these deals like this, that's where the real value and the real wealth in real estate is, like creating these types of strategies. It's not in flipping properties and wholesaling properties. That's a way to get quick cash, but that's not the best way to build wealth. The best way to build long-term wealth is by filling a pipeline of a bunch of these types of properties where you're getting in for low money down or no money down, and then cash flowing the properties over years and getting tremendous principal pay down if we're making payments to the seller, and then getting reselling them to our end buyer at a higher interest rate. Like here, I'm throwing out an example of selling the property at $918.12 a month at 7%. Well, my underlying payment to the seller is at 0% for that seller carryback, and when then plus whatever interest I owe on the lender's original. So if I can take over a loan at 4% interest and for the seller's loan, and then I resell it at 7%. Now I'm usually selling it higher. The system is just showing us worst case scenario. Like worst case scenario, I'm only going to get 7%. Um, I'm typically getting 8 or 9% on average, and I've actually got a couple of them where they need a lot of work, and I was basically treating them as a hard money, where I'm getting 12, 13% from the buyers. Right. So we can get tremendous amount of cash flow on these deals, but my underlying interest is still the same. Whatever the bank's interest is, and then usually with the seller, I don't pay any interest. So I'm getting tremendous principal pay down on my side, and the buyer is got a higher interest payment to me. So we're making the real spread on the interest portion of the payment from the buyer, less what we have to pay the seller and the seller's loan. So that's where the real cash flow is coming in on the properties. Right? And then we're paying down that principal, and then eventually they pay us off. Well, if you look at them paying us off after 3 years, let's see, buyers balloon to us 133. We pay out the sellers of 86,982 plus the seller's principal, which originally was 19,000, and we're only calculating $80 a month payment, and so we only owe them 16,500. Right, and that's why we're able to get a spread of $29,000 by the buyer paying us off and then we paying off on our underlying loans to the seller and the seller's lender. Right. So nice to get those that spread there plus our monthly cash flow, which is going to be pretty much interest. So we're collecting the interest on that. And we're really doing what the banks do. They make their money on the interest. We're able to make the money on the interest. Right. So that's the system in a nutshell. Now, there's a few other things that are available once you guys get signed up and get the property analyzer tools. All right, so we go back in the property analyzer tools. We got the repair estimator, seller net sheet, the offer generator. Down below, now let's say an offer gets accepted. Well, we've got the forms and contracts. So if you need the purchase agreement for the particular property, we would just go into the forms and contracts, and then it automatically fills in the contract for us. So we just put in the basic information, and let me pull that up. Let me pull up our property that we just had there. This is the one. All right. And then so we go through, we fill in. Now I already did this particular one, but we fill in as much information as we can. We fill in the seller's info, the property address, how we're going to buy the property, what price we're buying it at, the terms of the acquisition, when we want to close, the underlying mortgage information, right? The existing subject to options, any other terms and conditions we want to put in there, and then it will generate the purchase agreement for us. So I would hit just create purchase agreement. I think we had that one saved already, generated and saved. Yep. So it auto-filled it. So this is a fillable PDF. and the system filled in all the lines for us. So we don't have to worry about what goes in what line. All we have to do is fill in the text boxes here of what the information is, and it'll fill in the appropriate lines for us. Right? And you see we got multiple different contracts. So we got all the contracts for when you're buying the property, like say just a standard purchase agreement or a subject to deal. So like if we're doing subject to, we want the purchase agreement, we want authorization to release information, we want the CYA letter, we want a limited power of attorney, and if you're wholesaling, we got the assignment of contract. If you're the seller, we got the seller's purchase agreement because the sellers and buyers agreements are different. There's also a generic lease agreement in there. And then there's also a link to all the additional forms that you got access to. Now these other forms are not autofillable yet. Someday they will be, but they're not all. Now this is all the forms, like the purchase agreements in there, the letter of limited power of attorneys in there. So it's got access. These are already in that list, but the other ones are not fillable. I mean autofill. So they will be eventually. I'll get to them. I just haven't gotten them all done yet. So all the forms and contracts, that's all there for you. As well as back down the property management tools. You'll also get access to proof of funds. So proof of funds is if you're out making offers on deals and the seller comes back and says, well, the seller's entered, like maybe you're submitting it through a realtor, and the realtor comes back and says the seller is interested in your offer, but they would like to see proof of funds. Okay, let me go and provide that for you. Well, if you don't have access to your own proof of funds, where do you get that? Most people just walk away from the deal because they don't know how to get proof of funds. We can generate and provide you with the proof of funds as long as the numbers work. So you got to put in, you request the proof of funds, you put in the basic information. As long as the numbers hit the right Mayo formula, you will automatically get approved for the proof of funds. Now, there is an administrative cost. We do charge $49 per proof of funds, and we charge that for administrative purposes because when you guys submit these offers with these proof of funds, probably 75% of the time, we get a call or an email from the other party asking for verification of those funds. So I, either myself or I have to pay staff to take time away from other stuff that they're doing and generate a proof of funds or validate the backup of the proof of funds. So we send them copies of our lines of credits and our bank statements to say, yeah, the funds are available and that you are a member, that you're in good standing. Now, this is not a commitment to lend. We're not going to be lending for you guys. This is just the proof of funds so you can get your offers accepted. So for most of you guys, this is only going to come to play if you're a wholesaler. But it is one of those little tools that can help you put you over the edge. Right? And what I will do for you guys today is for the first 5 people that get signed up for the Property Analyzer tools, I'll give you guys 3 proof of funds credits. So for the first 5 people that get signed up, you'll get 3 proof of funds credits. So that's another $150 value right there that you'll be able to use and access those immediately. There's also cooperative marketing, and cooperative marketing is the ability to advertise and market other people's properties. So, for example, if I go into the property list and looking at this particular property here, I don't want to do that one. Looking for a property that maybe I would want to co-market. That one's a rental property, so it's not even a co-marketable property. Okay, so here, this property here looks like a decent one. Right? So I might want to co-market that. So I'm going to request permission to co-market. Okay, and so what it's doing is it's opening up an option agreement, right? And then it's asking for an equitable position of $500 less than what they're asking on the property. So it's asking so that we have the right to buy the property for $399,400 as opposed to what it's listed for is a $399,900. Now what that does is it gives us a small equitable position in the property once they've approved this option. That gives us the legal right to try to resell the option on this property. And then from doing that, we can advertise and market on our own website. And it automatically happens. So I'm just going to put in my initials and type I agree. So this is basically our digital signature. I'm going to hit save. And so now it's sending off an email to this property investors. And once they've approved it, it will then show up on my personal site. Let me go see if there's anything else out there that I would be interested in. These are already sold. Lake opportunity, huh? Let's see what they got here. Okay, that one is not available, so this one would probably be through a realtor. So we can't co-market realtor properties because they're already listed on the MLS. And here's another one. Looks good. So I'm going to request permission. Aha, and this one I think is already pre-approved. So sometimes, yeah, this one's already pre-approved. So I'm gonna go ahead and what I mean by pre-approved, when the investor lists the property, they're given the option, hey, do you want to automatically approve the cooperative marketing in case anybody would request it? Then that way they don't have to come back and approve them later. So I'm gonna hit OK. All right. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my personal site. And this property here, let's close that out. Close out these other windows. So the property here, now it should be on my site already. No, it did not show up. So it wasn't auto approved. All right, I got to check into that. Uh, yep. So not auto approved. All right, I got to go double check that one, see why it didn't. Showed it in there that he did approve it, but maybe it's still pending request. So I'll go and look at it and verify why it's still pending request. But once he's approved it, it will show up in here into my list for my property leads. Right. And so as now, like these are all my properties here. But the nice thing is especially if you're brand new and you don't have any properties for sale yet, you can go to your REIA and then request permission to co-market other people's properties. Now, the other party does have to approve the request, but once they've approved it, it'll automatically show up on your website. And so as you're out there advertising and marketing and for sellers come to your website and they're going to see activity, and you showing activity on your website adds to your credibility, right? So even if it's not your property, they're not going to know that you are advertising and marketing that property for another. Well, you're not advertising and marketing for another investor because technically you're marketing it for yourself, right? And then if somebody requests it, they can go ahead and you can go ahead and exercise your option to buy that property or assign your option to that other investor. And there's a whole training section in there as well, explaining that in way greater detail than what I just did that right there to give you guys an overview of what the cooperative marketing is. But it's another feature that you guys are going to definitely want to take advantage of. All right, let's see. Was there anything else? I think those are the major things. Oh, you also get access to that master class that I was telling you about before. Right? And so there's a bunch of different topics in here on various different things. Um, like that sweat equity I was talking about earlier. Here's the one on sweat equity. What is sweat equity? How to sell a property on sweat equity? What forms and stuff to use? How to do the calculations and all that. So that's in that sweat equity one. Right? And so the master class is through Real Estate Promo, but you will get access to that by being a Property Analyzer Tools member through your REIA. So you still have to go to your REIA to access it, but it does bring you to Real Estate Promo with the access credentials to access the master classes. Right. So that's all available. And to get signed up, all you have to do is go to Property Analyzer Tools, scroll down to where it says activate your property analyzer tools now, and that will go ahead and activate that for you. Bring that screen back up here, and it'll load up the shopping cart for you. So it should have the setup fee, which is normally $179, but the system is going to take $100 off. So it's going to apply the promo code REIA members. That'll take $100 off that setup fee, so it's really only $79. So you pay the $79 one-time setup fee plus $34.95, and that $34.95 is monthly reoccurring. Right? You can turn that off at any time that you want. And I also recommend take it out for a test run right now. Give it a 30-day trial. set up everything, go through the property analyzer tools, go analyze a few properties, go through all those training videos. And if you decide after 30 days that it just wasn't worth it or a good fit for you, you can go ahead and cancel. And there's a button right there in your dashboard that you can go ahead and cancel it. And it'll automatically issue a refund. Or just call my office or send an email and we will issue a refund. No questions asked in the first 30 days. After the first 30 days, though, it's not an automatic refund, but you can cancel it and turn it off at any time. And you can also pause it. It's like once you set it up, you can pause it and then turn it back on later on, and you'll never have to pay that setup fee again. You just pay the regular monthly fee at that time. Let's see, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah, the repair estimator. So once you guys get that up and running, and you got your default value set, the once a month, and I think that email either came out today or tomorrow. I'll double check. It's usually right around the middle of the month that the email comes out, and it's comparing your values to the state averages and showing you what the difference is. Because you're gonna want to go in and make adjustments to your default values on a regular basis, right? So the email is going to show you where things are sitting at and where you are currently sitting at. So and it's going to let you know, do you need to make any changes or are you good where you're at right now? You can hold tight for a while. You're going to get once you get signed up, you'll get the starter kit, which is going to walk you through everything that I explained to you guys today. Plus, you'll get an advanced wholesaling in your IRA as well as a subject to training that's in an MP3 format. So you'll be able to download those right away. The rest of it is all training videos that's going to be available through that mastermind class. So to activate this again, log into your REIA, go to my account, my dashboard, and go to the property analyzer tools, and then click on that button that says activate your REIA tools now. That'll load up the shopping cart and it'll include that $100 promo code for the setup fee. Now, if you're not a member of the REIA, you can still take advantage of this. You just don't get the discount on the setup fee, and it's also $10 more per month on a monthly basis. So you'll pay the full setup fee and the $10 more on the monthly. But I recommend just go ahead and activate your membership with your REIA and then go ahead and turn on the property analyzer tools. And if you need any help, go ahead and call my office and they will help you guys get set up. They'll help you with your logins, whatever you guys need help with. You can just give my office a call. That number right there in the bottom of the screen, 763-432-2809. Or you can send an email to support@realestatepromo.com and they'll get back to you as quickly as possible. All right, so I'm going to go back into the question boxes. So any questions you guys have that I have not covered, just go ahead and type them in here and I will go ahead and start answering those now. Someone was asking earlier when I was talking about the repair estimator that the um, prices are going to be based on the property location. It's going to be based on your personal values. So you set your own values. And yeah, that would include labor and materials. But you set in your own values, but the system's going to show you what your state average is. So it shows you the state average, it just doesn't use it. All right. What most people do is they just set their values to the state average when you first get started. There will be a button in there that says set all to the state average, and it'll just run through and set everything at the state average. Right? And that state average is constantly moving, and that number is adjusting all the time as you and your other members that are currently out there doing deals are working on this system and they're going in and making changes and modifying their own personal numbers. Oh yeah, for those who were asking earlier too, this is being recorded, so you will get an email from Zoom with the replay link. It'll probably usually comes out the next day, so keep an eye out for it tomorrow morning. As well as I will place there's a video right now from last month. So if you go into the property analyzer tools, there's a video right here that is basically this training that I just did today. So you can go and watch the replay from last month, but I'll get today's uploaded. I'll probably get uploaded later, either later tonight or tomorrow morning. And the only difference is going to really be is the Q&A part of it, because this is live. I didn't play a video, right? So I went through, gave you guys a live demo. So the demo part of it will be pretty close to the same as what we had last month. The only difference is going to be our Q&A. Uh, someone saying you already have another site website. Can you still purchase it? Yeah, you can still purchase this. You get the website that comes along with it. You can still use your other website, and then for some of the tools that you would want to use, you can from your other website link them to this site if you need to do that. So several people do that already. How do you earn revenue with somebody else's property on your site? So the two different ways that you could use that. It's Tyler is talking about the cooperative marketing, and that's where I was talking about marketing other people's properties. You're going to get what's called an option to buy the property for less than what the seller's asking. So, I mean, from a legal standpoint, you've got an equitable interest in the property, and you have the legal right to try to sell that equitable interest. So you can sell that option to that, but that's not the way I would recommend you do it. I'm just telling you from a legal standpoint so that we stay in compliance. That's how it is done. What I would really do is if you got a buyer on a particular property and you're for somebody that you're co-marketing, I would get a hold of the seller and say, "Hey, I got a buyer. You want to pay me? Can you pay me a marketing fee? Give me $1,000 for a marketing fee, all right? And then turn that buyer over, and when they buy, you get paid your $1,000 marketing fee because you marketed to find that buyer, all right? Or you can go to the seller and say, "Hey, I got a buyer. Let's say the seller is asking $200,000 for the property. Will you sell it to me for 190?" No, you can buy the property for the 190 and turn around and sell it, resell it for the 200. You have all kinds of different options, but that's not the main reason for actually posting the properties on your site. The main reason for posting the properties on the site that are other people's is as you're communicating and talking to the sellers will go to your website and look and see what kind of activity you got. And I've bought properties all the time from sellers that tell me that the one thing that pushed them over the edge to go with me as opposed to my competition is they went and looked at my website and they can see that I was actively doing the business. When they went to the other investors' websites, those websites looked more like marketing platforms and they didn't feel the confidence that my website instilled on them. So a lot of times I've had several sellers over the years tell me that it was my website because I had that activity. Well, I've been co-marketing other people's properties for 20 some years because I first started doing that in the early years when I didn't have any deals of my own. And I found I was really good at marketing the properties. I just, at the beginning, I didn't have the cash to buy the properties. So I would go to the other investors and say, "Hey, if I sold the property, would you pay me for finding the buyer?" And I found that there's a lot of other investors that were not good at that. So I actually got pretty good at selling properties. I just didn't, I wasn't good at finding the leads in the beginning. So I sold properties for other investors before I got my own deals, but that gave me the experience that I needed in the business and the confidence that when I finally did get my own deals, that I knew I could sell the properties. Right. So I literally got started in reverse, and I was using a version of this. I mean, we didn't have a cooperative marketing agreement back in the day. Back in the day, we didn't even have the website. I would just go to the investors and say, "Hey," and there was like three or four of them that always let me do it. So I would just, "Hey, you got another I see you got another property. Oh, let me go ahead and advertise and market it. And if I find a buyer, I would just give them the buyer, and they would just pay me a fee for bringing them the buyers." It was a great way to get started. So somebody was asking earlier, let's see. Under the premium features, there is a section for comps. Where can I find some comps for the property? So there's several different training videos in there that I walk you guys on how to find comps and how to analyze them in the master classes. So if you have access to the MLS, great, go find your comps there. If you don't have access, a couple of there's two or three sections in the master the real estate master classes where I'm literally showing you how to go to Zillow. And you can do it on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, whatever. But I'm showing you on Zillow how to go into Zillow and not use Zillow's estimate, but do a deep dive in the back end of Zillow looking for comps. Because Zillow does have the comps. Right? It's just not part of the front end. Well, I shouldn't say the front end. It is on the front end, but you have to change the settings so that it'll show you true comps. And I'm not talking about the comps that is you show Zillow shows on the listing saying, hey, here's comparable properties. Now I go in and I create my own comp search, and I teach you guys how to do that using the Zillow. So there's plenty of different ways of doing that. Because like on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, those comps, when I say comps, I'm talking about properties that have actually sold. Those most of those are coming from the MLS anyways. They're just because those guys are third party marketers for the realtors, so they're getting the data from the MLS. So they don't have all the details. So it does still help if you have access to the MLS. But what I do these days, even though I have access to the MLS, I still use Zillow for running my comps. And then when there's things that I'm not quite sure or confident on, maybe I don't have enough information coming off of Zillow, then I will go look at particular property that I'm trying to look at as a comp. I'll go and look that up in the MLS just to confirm and get more details on it. But I'm still generally using Zillow to run all my comps these days. So Marie just signed up. How do you know about your proof of funds credits? I will go through once I'm all done here, and I can tell you you are qualified because we still have one more spot open for the three proof of funds credits. So we got four that have signed up so far. Oh, take that back. Somebody else just signed up now. So I will go through and make sure. Looks like we just hit our five. So I will make sure that everyone that's signed up as of this point right now, because we just hit the number five, has got their three proof of funds credits. So I'll do that shortly after we get done here. And that's not automatic. I have to go in and manually do that. All right, so hopefully when it comes to the cooperative market, I answered the question about how to financially benefit from that. So I don't know if that's the same person re-asking the question or if that's a couple of different people asking the same question. But yeah, look at the cooperative marketing thing as just a marketing tool to help you with the sellers. And there is a side benefit that you might end up finding a buyer for a property, and then you can go back to the seller and say, hey, can you pay me a fee, marketing fee for bringing you the buyer, or can you sell me the property at a lower price and you turn around and resell it, or do an assignment of your option to buy the property. And I would most definitely, if you're going to go that route, most definitely renegotiate. In fact, the option agreement that you guys sign and that gets approved literally has a clause in there that says if you are going to bring a buyer to the table, that you recommend creating a different option agreement offline between the two parties. That way you can get in the particular details you need for that property because that option agreement that you're signing as a cooperative marketing agreement is it's strong enough to hold up from a legal standpoint that if you got the state regulatory agencies looking at you and saying, hey, you're advertising a property that you don't own, so how can you, and you're not a licensed real estate agent, so how can you do that? And you say, well, here I got a option to buy the property, and so it does stand up from the legal scrutiny for that. But from the practical standpoint, I would want to use a different option contract or convert it straight into a standard purchase and sales agreement that is something you can execute on. What is the proof of funds? That is, as you're making offers, especially as a wholesaler, quite often the other party, because it's usually like a realtor, or maybe you're making an offer on a property that's owned by a bank or like a hedge fund or something like that. And if you're making an offer, they won't even entertain your offer, especially if it's a cash offer, unless you have proof of funds. Or if you're saying, hey, I'm gonna apply and secure new financing. Okay, well, show me proof of funds or proof that you qualify for a hard money type of a loan before we'll even entertain your offer. Right. Well, most beginning wholesalers don't have proof of funds yet, haven't built up your own proof of funds, or haven't built up a network of investors in your market that you can get proof of funds for. Because, quite honestly, once you get going, you won't need your own independent proof of funds because you can use the proof of funds from your people that you're wholesaling the properties to. Like, in fact, quite frequently when I got a wholesaler in my market that comes to me and says, "Hey, Mike, I got a great property. I've been working with the agent on it. I got good numbers. The only thing that's holding me back is they want proof of funds." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll provide you with proof of funds, and that, but only if I'm the one that ends up buying the property from you. You know, and if I've already bought from them in the past, we know each other, and like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll provide you with the proof of funds so that I can become the buyer." Uh, James, I'm not quite sure what the meaning of your question is. Do you consider hard money financing? Um, do I consider hard money financing what? Do I consider using it? I've used millions of dollars of hard money, and now I actually do a little bit of hard money lending myself. So yeah, it's a great way to get started. So I'm not sure if that was your question or if you had another part to it that didn't get added into the question that maybe got cut off. So if you want to clarify that a little bit more, James. Oh, and okay. In the Mayo formula, do I? No. So the Mayo formula does not include hard money. So if you know you're gonna be using hard money, and you're making your Mayo formula, what most investors will do is just add like 5 points or 5% to the deal. It's like I'm at 75% for my Mayo right now, and now if I was gonna use hard money, I might drop that down to 70. Or if you're at 70 right now, you might have to drop it down to 65. Right. So whatever Mayo formula is the standard in your market, and that is going to be different on all markets. I mean, I've been at 75, and if we go look at our default values, because that has been changing. Let's go look at that again. It's still up there. So I'm at 75. My state average is coming at 75. The national average is still coming at 78. Right. So if you're sitting at the national average of 78 and you wanted to get hard money lending, factor it in there. The easiest way to do that is change your Mayo formula from 78 down to 73. And here you just come in here and go 73 and then hit save, and now you've got that built into yours. Or like I'm at 75, I could change that to 70. I don't want to hit save right now because that would update my numbers. But it would change my Mayo formula down to 70. That's got my built in there. The other way you could do that um, is right, here's another option. Go look at that property. No, not that property list. So we were just working on this deal here. The other option, so I'm at 75%. You could also do like an adjustment and go 5% here, update, and that'll lower your Mayo down to 88.5. So we got a couple different ways for you to handle that if you consider or if you know you need hard money lending. How do you contact me for hard money? I don't do hard money outside of my area, and I don't do a lot of it. So if you're a member of REIA and if you had deals, then reach out to me through my office. If you're local here in Minnesota and you're a REIA member, all right, reach out to me, and then I can analyze the deals and see if that's a good fit for us. And I don't do a lot of it because I don't have a ton of capital available. Because I got a lot of lines of credit right now, but they're all out on properties. I just closed on three of them myself in the last 2 weeks, so I got a lot out at the moment. But we still got some capital available. But running short right now because I'm finding a lot of really good deals. These sub two deals are starting to pop, and the foreclosure market is starting to pick up, and because of that, the sub two deals are coming out. The sellers are getting motivated. They're starting to do more crazy things than they've ever done before. So yeah, it's starting to become a really good time, especially for our sub two buyers. that really understand the subject too, which is why those master classes, we go back into the dashboard and go watch those master classes, and then do the subject to, and then follow up on the due on sale clause. Those are huge. You guys definitely want to go through and learn those. Plus, you guys are going to get the subject to MP3 training as well when you get signed up. All right, so I think I've gone through, got all your guys' questions, and oh, looks like another one just came in. Is there a way to play with it? And like I just said, I mean, you're writing samples, uh, not without signing up, but like I said, you can go ahead and get signed up right now. Take it for a test run for the first 30 days. And if you don't feel it was worth it, you can go ahead and cancel it. There is a button to cancel it right on your dashboard, or you can call my office or send an email. No questions asked for the first 30 days. You'll get a full refund, including your setup fee. So you'll get the $34.95 plus the $79 back in the first 30 days. So take it for a test run right now. In fact, I recommend people go ahead and get signed up, take it for a test run, go out and practice it for a couple different reasons. One, um, every now and then people say, "Hey, this is an awesome tool, Mike. I'm going to use it once I start getting leads." Well, the problem is once you start getting the leads, now and then you go sign up for this. Now you got to go through that learning curve, and you got to spend a week or so going through the training, getting all the default values set up, and most of the time you guys do this at 10, 11 o'clock at night when you're sitting around, after you got the kids put to bed, and you try to learn this, and then you have questions, and you got to wait till the next day to even get your questions asked because there's nobody around to answer your questions at night. So you call my office during the day. So it takes you a week or two. By the time you finally get it figured out, that deal's gone because somebody else already bought it. Right. So you do want to get out there. The other thing that I have actually had people tell me is because they're practicing, they were trying to find deals to practice, and they went out and made offers on them, and it actually pushed them over the edge to make the offer, which got them their first deal just because they were trying to get out there and find something to practice on. So I recommend just getting signed up, get out there, practice on it, and go make some offers because that's the biggest thing. Is you got to get out there and make offers. And if you're afraid of making an offer, here's a tip that I give a lot of my local people here. If you're afraid to make the offer, go ahead and figure out run your numbers, figure out what the offers are coming in at. Well, first of all, if you're following the Mayo formula, you're going to have a good offer. But if you're still afraid of it, go ahead and cut the offer. Like if you're coming in with an offer of 250, well, cut the offer down to, and you think that's really low, but you're still afraid to make the offer, cut the offer down to 200, and then go ahead and make the offer, knowing that there's no way the seller would ever accept it. But if they did accept it, there's no way you'd not be able to sell it to another REIA member just by bringing it to the next meeting or one of your meetings, or reaching out to your REIA leaders and saying, "Hey, I screwed up because I did what Mike told me and I made an offer and the sellers accepted it. Now what do I do?" Okay, well, whoever you're asking will probably either buy it from you or they'll at least tell you how to get it to the rest of the masses. And don't forget, you guys got that free website through the REIA. So you go ahead and post it on the site. All right, it's going to get emailed out to everybody in your REIA. And if you got really good numbers on a deal and you put that on the site, it's going to get sold to your REIA members. So it's a good wholesaling opportunity for you. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Go back into that. Yeah, that was just to remind you guys to activate your free website if you haven't done that already. And then activate the property analyzer tools. All right, so with that, I'm going to be signing up. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when you guys get signed up, make sure you go in to your dashboard and the mastermind tonight. You click on that link and you'll be able to get signed up for tonight's mastermind training. Right? And that's open Q&A. So whatever you guys want to talk about, you guys just got signed up today. Maybe you're playing around with the tools this afternoon for the next couple hours. you can get on that mastermind tonight and ask me. And that's a regular Zoom meeting where we got the chat open and we do video. Everyone can see everybody. This is like a Zoom webinar, so we don't have those functions. But on tonight, that'll be a Zoom meeting where we will have the video on. We can see each other, talk to each other. I can run over your deals with you. We can talk about anything you guys want to talk about. You want to talk about cooperative marketing? You want to talk about marketing to foreclosures or vacant buildings or whatever you guys want to talk about. That's what we got for tonight. It's usually, anywhere from 5 to 15 people will get on that call. So we'll cover whatever you guys want to talk about. And tomorrow night as well. Tomorrow night we have the virtual tour. So you can also sign up for tomorrow night's virtual tour, right? And that's where I'm going through a property locally here with our local members, and we bring you guys along on a Zoom. So I got my video guy. He'll open up his phone and follow along, so you guys get to see the property. And if you guys have questions, you guys can interact by asking questions. And then my video guy Dylan will repeat the questions to me, so we can answer them for you guys. So we got a ton of great training for you guys. We got that masterclass training for you guys as well. So go and get started on that stuff. And I will go through and make sure everyone's proof of funds credits got approved and got assigned. Looks like we did have a couple more people after that. So what I'll do is anybody that got signed up by now, because it looks like we surpassed the 5. I think we're at 8 or 9 right now. I'll make sure that, it might be difficult for me to figure out in the right order. I'll just make sure that everyone gets the proof of funds credits that is signed up as of this moment. So with that, I'm going to sign off. You guys have a fantastic afternoon, and hopefully I'll see you guys on tonight's mastermind class. And bring your questions and bring your deals with, and we'll work through those for you guys. So thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon.